Okay. I have a couple questions just to feel you guys out. Who has used jQuery before? Just about everyone. Okay. Who's used Node before? Okay. Okay. So I don't have a presentation, and Terrence did a great job explaining how you might want to go about taking screenshots or doing a real browser testing. He alluded to the fact that jsdom is not a real project, which hurts a little, but it's true. It's true. jsdom definitely has its own use case, and it's definitely not taking screenshots or doing full browser testing. It's more like I have some code that I just wrote, so it'll work, I'm sure. So this is, let's see, where do we go? This is awesome. Okay, you can see that? Yes. Okay, so if you're familiar with Node, you just npm install jsdom. You will have to compile some C++, so you might want to be aware of that, especially on Windows. Then you can just require jsdom, and then you can run this jsdom.env with the URL, and it will provide you with the errors that occurred during that process while it was fetching and parsing the window, or the DOM, the document, the HTML, whatever, and it will also provide you a window. And then inside of that window, you get a W3C spec compliant document. So, like all of the typical things that you are used to, like document.innerHTML or add event listener, and all that stuff exists and is available to you. And to prove it, we can do another little example. Where we go out and get the Node.js distribution page, which looks a lot like this guy here. So it's just a list of links, just a bunch of stuff. And stepping back just a second, if we run the first one, which was go give me the dist URL and print out all the HTML, this is what you're seeing. So all this HTML, which is basically that list. If we run the second one, which is actually going to parse it and print out all the links, right? Uses jQuery, it injects jQuery, and then you can pull the $sign off of window and actually use, select all of the anchors, loop through them, print the text. So if I'm not making any sense or whatever, just throw something at me or yell at me or something. Raise your hand or whatever.
I've got a security question. So is that basically just evaling the jQuery?
I'm happy you asked. So the interesting thing about this, the web is kind of the wild, wild west of JavaScript. And so if you were going to all of a sudden start executing random JavaScript on the internet, somebody could get wise to you, right? If you're like scraping their web page, and they're like, oh, he's using jsdom, and so I'm just going to inject my own like RMRF to his entire system. By default, that won't happen. It just runs this JavaScript. It won't run what's on the page.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Yeah. So
Okay.
it runs what you include, and it doesn't run what's on the page unless you explicitly tell it to. So when we run this guy, it just prints out all the text. So you can do useful things like with this, like lots of scraping, some testing. It has limited utility, but it's definitely usable. And to finalize, I mean, this is very, very fast. I don't have that much. So Joe, right? Bill. I'm sorry. So Bill had a question earlier about doing translate, and so I was like, what would be a better example than doing that? So we set up using the, I guess, classic Google Translate GET request, and we pass in from process argv, which is the basically the first argument after node script, that first argument, and we pass it in as words to this URL, run it, actually, fetch the page, parse it, inject jQuery, and then we'll say, your original words got translated into this element that we're pulling off the page, which is a class T0. And I'll prove that this is actually real. T0 right there. So if we run that guy. Funny thing as I was testing this, is if you don't provide anything, it's undefined, and so it will actually translate that as well. Which is pretty cool. So chicken is polo in Spanish. Can't really see that. Yeah. Or monkey. Why not? Yeah. So yeah, I mean that's basically all I had. I don't want to really like show you up or anything or like.
No, by no means. Literally,
Be
like,
that
I knew
jerk.
you could do it in Node. I was doing this 3 hours ago, putting together the slides, and I didn't really look into jsdom at all.
Well,
right?
yeah.
I looked on Stack Overflow for 2 libraries that could do it, and I just pasted it in there. So I totally didn't know you could do JavaScript. in this,
Or
so that's
those
awesome.
in the audience.
that was a bigger thing.
And then also it depends on your use case too, right? So it might be faster in JSDOM to grab a quick amount of links if you don't want to bootstrap a headless browser versus having it in JavaScript.
It might be lighter.
Yeah.
This is great for a spider, right?
What's that?
This is great for a spider, right?
Yes, and that brings me to my final point. So there's actually this thing called zombie. Yeah, and by the way, you can actually, it's on temp.jsdom. To be honest, I don't maintain this anymore. Dominic Demicola actually took this over, and he's been doing a better job than I could ever do. But it still exists, and it's very functional. Moving on. The thing that you generally want to use for scraping and testing and all that stuff is zombie.js. It actually runs on top of JSDOM, and it fixes a bunch of stuff. It uses a better parser. There's just a bunch of improvements. Yeah, so if you're going down this road, you might want to look at that.